An older man finally manages to leave the Soviet Union in the late 1980s to join his wife and son in the United States. As he heads through the Soviet border, a guard searches his luggage and pulls out a bust of Lenin. "What is this?" the guard asks. "Don't ask me what this is, ask me who this is," the man replies. "Ugh, this is Vladimir Lenin, the great hero who fought for the rights of the people in our country. I'm bringing him with me to remind myself to continue that battle in America." The guard nods and lets him through. When the man arrives in America, the customs officer opens his luggage and finds the bust of Lenin. "What's this?" the officer asks. "Don't ask me what this is, ask me who this is." The man says, "This is Vladimir Lenin, the fiendish monster who destroyed my beautiful homeland. I'm bringing him with me to remind myself of the mistakes of the past." The officer nods and lets him through. The man then takes a taxi to the house where his wife and son are waiting for him. After the emotional reunion, the son spots the bust of Lenin and asks, "Papa, who is this?" The man smiles and replies, "My son, don't ask me who this is, ask me what this is. This, my son, is 18 pounds of gold." A woman decides to surprise her husband with a brand new luxury wardrobe. While he's at work, she heads to IKEA, buys the wardrobe, and assembles it herself at home. After a while, she steps back to admire her work. It's perfect. But just as she's basking in her success, a bus drives by, and the entire wardrobe collapses. Stunned, she rebuilds it, following the instructions carefully, making sure everything is done right. Minutes later, another bus passes, and once again the wardrobe falls to pieces. Frustrated, she calls IKEA's customer support. "Hello, I've got a problem," she says. "I bought a wardrobe, followed the instructions perfectly, but whenever a bus drives by, it collapses. What's going on?" The customer service representative assures her that they'll help. He arranges for the carpenter who designed the wardrobe to come over and assist her. The carpenter arrives, watches her rebuild the wardrobe, and is just as puzzled when, sure enough, the wardrobe falls apart after another bus passes. Determined to solve the mystery, the carpenter helps her rebuild it one more time. This time, he steps inside the wardrobe to observe what happens when the bus passes. Just then, the woman's husband bursts through the front door, demanding to know why the neighbors have been texting him, saying a strange man had been in their house for hours. He storms through the house, opening doors until he finally finds the wardrobe. He flings it open, revealing the carpenter inside. Furious, he demands, "What are you doing in my wardrobe?" The carpenter looks up, startled, and says, "Would you believe me if I told you I'm waiting for the bus?" One day, a man decided to retire and booked himself on a Caribbean cruise. He was having the time of his life until, of course, the ship sank. He soon found himself stranded on a deserted island with no supplies, no company, just bananas and coconuts. For 4 months, he managed to survive, but he was getting desperate. One day, as he lay on the beach, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen rowed up to the shore. In disbelief, he asked, "Where did you come from? How did you get here?" She smiled and replied, "I rowed over from the other side of the island, where I landed after my cruise ship sank." "That's amazing," he exclaimed. "You were lucky to have a rowboat wash up with you." She chuckled. "Oh, this boat? I made it myself using raw materials from the island. The oars are whittled from gum tree branches, the bottom is woven from palm tree branches, and the sides and stern are from an eucalyptus tree." The man, now wide-eyed, asked, "But where did you get the tools?" She grinned. "On the south side of the island, there's an unusual stratum of alluvial rock. I fired it in my kiln, melted it into ductile iron, and used it to make tools, which I then used to make the hardware." The man could hardly believe his ears. "Let's go to my place," she said. "I'll give you a tour." A short time later, after rowing over, the man stared in awe as they approached a long stone walkway leading up to a cabin and a treehouse. The woman expertly tied the boat with a hand-woven hemp rope, while the man was still in shock. "Please, come in," she said, and after they entered the house, she casually offered, "Would you like a drink?" "No, no, thank you," he blurted out. "I can't take another drop of coconut juice." She smiled and winked. "It's not coconut juice. I have a still. How would you like a tropical spritz?" He tried to hide his amazement as she served him. After a bit of conversation, the woman said, "I'm going to slip into something more comfortable. You can take a shower and shave if you'd like. There's a razor in the bathroom cabinet upstairs." Without questioning anything, the man went upstairs and found the razor. It was made from tortoise bone, with two shells honed to a sharp edge and fastened inside a swivel mechanism. Amazing, he thought. What's next? When he returned, she greeted him, wearing nothing but small flowers on vines, strategically placed. She smelled faintly of gardenias. She beckoned him to sit down next to her. "Tell me," she asked suggestively. "We've both been alone here for months. You must have been lonely? When was the last time you played around?" The man's heart raced. He swallowed nervously, trying to process what she was saying. "You mean—" His eyes widened. "You've built a golf course, too?" A little old lady was walking down the street, dragging two large plastic garbage bags behind her. One of the bags was ripped, and every now and then a 20 pounds note fell out onto the sidewalk. Noticing this, a policeman stopped her and said, "Ma'am, there are 20 pounds notes falling out of that bag." "Oh, really?" she said, looking a little flustered. "Darn it. I'd better go back and see if I can find them. Thanks for telling me, officer." "Well, now, not so fast," said the cop, eyeing the bags suspiciously. "Where did you get all that money? You didn't steal it, did you?" "Oh, no, no," the old lady replied. "You see, my garden is right next to a golf course. A lot of golfers come and pee through a knothole in my fence, right into my flower garden. It used to really tick me off. Kills the flowers, you know? Then one day I thought, why not make the best of it? So now I stand behind the fence, real quiet, with my hedge clippers. Every time some guy sticks his thing through the hole, I surprise him, grab hold of it, and say, 'Okay, mate, give me 20 pounds or off it comes.'" "Well, that seems fair enough," said the cop, laughing. "Okay, good luck. By the way, what's in the other bag?" The old lady winked and replied, "Not everybody pays." Three friends, a turtle, a mole, and a bear, are drafted into the army, but none of them want to go, so they each need to provide medical proof why they can't join. "It's easy for me," says the turtle. "I'm slow." He enters the examination room, and when he comes out, he happily tells his friends that he is officially too slow to join. "Well," says the mole, "I'm literally blind. How could they possibly want me?" He goes in for his exam, and just a few minutes later, comes out and hugs his friend, relieved that they don't need a blind mole in the army. "All right, guys," says the bear, terrified. "Let's face it, I'm one of the biggest and most dangerous animals. I'm the perfect soldier." The turtle thinks for a moment, then says slowly, "I have an idea. The most dangerous part of you is your teeth. Without your teeth, you're not really dangerous. So if we just smash your teeth, they won't want you." Reluctantly, the bear agrees, and the three friends work together to smash his teeth. The bear enters the examination room, and after 10 minutes, he comes out with his head hanging low and a sad face. "So, do you have to join the army?" asks the turtle cautiously. The bear mumbles, "No, I'm too fat." A young boy is on a long flight with his family when suddenly there's a loud bang, and the entire plane shakes violently, and the passengers are clearly terrified. But the shaking and the noise stop quickly. Soon the pilot comes over the intercom. "Sorry for the scare, folks. It seems one of our engines unexpectedly failed. But don't worry, the other three engines are working just fine, and we'll land just a few minutes later than planned." The boy is a bit annoyed by the delay, but relieved that there's no serious danger, and he settles in again. A little later, there's another loud boom, and the plane shakes again. The passengers brace themselves, but it quickly fades back to normal. The captain comes back on the intercom. "Folks, we apologize for the second scare. It's highly unusual to have two engines fail like this, but we're still flying safely with the two remaining engines. We'll just be landing an hour or two later than scheduled." The boy grows more annoyed, but he's still mostly relieved that everything's okay. A bit later, the plane shakes again, and another deafening pop echoes through the cabin. The boy had drifted off to sleep, but he wakes up to the captain's voice once again. "Good evening, folks, and sorry again for the scare. This situation is highly unusual, but we are still fine flying with just one engine. We will be landing about 6 hours later than originally planned." Frustrated, the boy can't hold it in any longer and yells, "What the hell?" If the fourth engine stops, we're going to be up here all day. A television crew arrives at a farm to interview the shepherd about his daily routine. Our viewers would love to know what a regular day on the countryside looks like. Could you start from the beginning? Asks the reporter. Sure, begins the shepherd. So, first I wake up, but I don't really want to. So I have a sip of my brandy to kickstart my day. Then I head out to release the sheep. I'm still pretty sleepy, so I take 2 more sips to help me get outside, and another to get enough energy to open the gate. Once I'm out in the field, I usually meet my buddy, and we drink 2 whole bottles of brandy together, and then the reporter quickly interrupts. Oh, I'm sorry, but we can't air that. We're on live TV and children are watching. How about instead of drinking, you just say you read a book every time? The shepherd thinks for a moment and agrees. That makes sense. Okay, I'll start over. So, first thing in the morning, I wake up and read a page of my book. Then I go outside and read 2 more pages plus 1 more while I open the gate for the sheep. Out in the field, I usually meet my buddy and we read 2 whole books together. After that, we head back home, reading page after page as we lock the sheep in the barn. Finally, at the end of the day, we go to town where my friend owns a library and we read all night until morning. A policeman was interrogating 3 rookie detectives and decided to test their skills at identifying suspects. He shows the first guy a picture for 5 seconds and then hides it. This is your suspect. How would you recognize him? Asks the policeman. The first guy immediately responds, That's easy. We'll catch him fast because he only has one eye. The policeman shakes his head and says, Well, that's because the picture I showed is of his side profile. A bit embarrassed, the first guy sits back and the policeman shows the picture to the second guy for 5 seconds, asking, This is your suspect. How would you recognize him? The second guy, smiling confidently, replies, Yeah, he'd be easy to catch because he only has one ear. The policeman is now visibly frustrated. What's wrong with you two? Of course, there's only one eye and one ear because it's a side profile. Are these the best answers you can come up with? Feeling exasperated, he shows the picture to the third guy and says, This is your suspect. How would you recognize him? Think before you give me another ridiculous answer. The third guy looks at the picture carefully for a moment and then responds, The suspect wears contact lenses. The policeman is surprised and asks, Wait a second. I don't even know if he wears contact lenses. Let me check his file. The policeman goes to his office, checks the suspect's file, and comes back grinning. Unbelievable. You're right. The suspect does wear contact lenses. How did you know? The third guy smiles and says, It's simple. He can't wear regular glasses because he only has one eye and one ear. A Midwesterner from Fargo, who had done a lot of cross-country skiing, decided to try downhill skiing for the first time while on vacation in the Poconos. After all, Fargo's flatter than a pancake, and the Midwesterner thought to himself, How hard can this be? I've been skiing for 40 years. So he gets on the lift, comes off, and immediately plows straight down the hill, only to end up flat on his face. Determined, he heads for a lesson with a New York City ski instructor. All right, Mr. Bjornson, says the instructor, I'm going to teach you the most important thing in downhill skiing. It's called pizza and french fries. Pizza to stop, french fries to go. Got it, Bjornson says confidently. Pizza french fries, easy enough. 30 minutes later, the New Yorker sees Mr. Bjornson upside down in a snowbank, looking totally confused. Mr. Bjornson, the instructor calls out, I said pizza to stop, french fries to go. Bjornson pulls himself out of the snowbank and says, Oh, yeah, I did the pizza and the french fries. He then angles his skis toward each other. See? Like the french fries you get over at the Holiday Station stores, huh? But nothing happens. He doesn't move an inch. The instructor says, No, no, no. You need to make the skis like this. A pizza shape, not a french fry shape. Bjornson, still determined, reshapes his skis into the pizza position, which is basically making them parallel to each other, and whoosh, he rockets down the hill, landing straight into another snowbank. A local business put up a sign in the window that read, Help wanted. Must be able to type, must be good with a computer, and must be bilingual. We are an equal opportunity employer. A short time later, a dog trotted up to the window, saw the sign, and went inside. The dog wagged its tail at the receptionist, then walked over to the sign, sniffed it, and whined. The receptionist, a bit surprised, got the office manager. The manager walked in, completely taken aback by the dog, but the dog looked determined, so the manager led him into the office. The dog jumped up onto the chair and stared at the manager, who said, "I'm sorry, but I can't hire you. The sign says you have to be able to type." The dog jumped down, went to the typewriter, and typed out a perfect letter. He took the page and trotted over to the manager, handing it to him, then jumped back onto the chair. The manager was stunned. "Okay, well, the sign also says you have to be good with a computer," the manager said. The dog jumped down again, walked over to the computer, and quickly demonstrated his expertise, navigating through programs, creating a spreadsheet, and even pulling up a database. He presented them to the manager with a proud wag of his tail. By now, the manager was speechless. He looked at the dog, thoroughly impressed, but said, "I still can't give you the job. The sign also says you have to be bilingual." The dog stared back at him, then looked at the equal opportunity employer part of the sign. He then turned to the manager, looked him straight in the face, and said, "Meow." A Montana cowboy was overseeing his herd in a remote mountainous pasture when suddenly a brand new BMW emerged from a dust cloud and slowly made its way toward him. The driver, a young man dressed in a Brioni suit, Gucci shoes, Ray-Ban sunglasses, and a YSL tie, leaned out the window and asked the cowboy, "If I tell you exactly how many cows and calves you have in your herd, will you give me a calf?" The cowboy eyed the man, obviously a yuppie, then glanced over at his peacefully grazing herd and said, "Sure, why not?" The young man parks his car, whips out his Dell notebook, connects it to his iPhone, and uses it to surf to a NASA page on the internet. He then accesses a GPS satellite navigation system to get an exact fix on his location, which he feeds into another NASA satellite. The satellite scans the area with ultra-high-resolution photography. The man opens the photo in Adobe Photoshop and exports it to an image processing facility in Hamburg, Germany. Within seconds, he receives an email on his iPad that the image has been processed and the data is stored. He then accesses an MS SQL database through an ODBC-connected Excel spreadsheet on his BlackBerry. A few minutes later, he gets a response. Finally, he prints out a full-color 150-page report on his high-tech mini HP LaserJet printer, then turns to the cowboy and says, "You have exactly 1,586 cows and calves." "That's right." "Well, I guess you can take one of my calves," says the cowboy. The young man picks one of the calves and starts stuffing it into the trunk of his car. As the cowboy watches with amusement, he turns to the young man and says, "Hey, if I can tell you exactly what your business is, will you give me back my calf?" The young man thinks about it for a moment, then says, "Okay, why not?" The cowboy looks him in the eye and says, "You're a congressman in the U.S. government." "Wow, that's correct," says the young man. "But how did you know?" "Well," says the cowboy, "no guessing required. You showed up here without being called. You tried to get paid for an answer I already knew to a question I never asked. You tried to show me how much smarter you are than me, and yet you don't know a thing about cows. This is a herd of sheep. Now, give me back my dog." A priest, a thief, and an engineer were all waiting in line to be executed by guillotine during the French Revolution. The priest was to be the first to face his fate. As he stepped onto the platform, the executioner asked him, "Father, would you like to meet your maker face up or face down?" After thinking for a moment, the priest answered, "My son, if today is to be my last day, I wish to go face up, so that I can look towards the heavens and the Almighty as I take my last breath." The executioner obliged, placing the priest on his back in the guillotine. He slowly raised the deadly blade, dripping with the blood of previous victims. At its maximum height, it snapped into place, and the crowd waited in anticipation. The priest said a quiet prayer, and the executioner released the blade. It careened down with terrifying speed, but unbelievably it stopped just above the priest's neck, sparing his life. Believing it to be a sign from heaven, the executioner released the priest and sent him off to freedom. Next, it was the thief's turn. Asked the same question. The thief, seeing what had just happened to the priest, thought, "Why not? I have nothing to lose," and also chose to die face up. The executioner raised the blade to its maximum height, then released it. Amazingly, the blade stopped just above the thief's neck as well. The executioner, now certain that this must be some divine sign, freed the thief. Finally, it was the engineer's turn. When the executioner asked, "Face up or face down?" the engineer, though puzzled by the turn of events, replied, "Face up, please." The executioner laid the engineer down, securing him in the guillotine and raising the blade to its position of maximum potential energy. As the executioner prepared to release the blade, the engineer suddenly shouted, "Hang on a sec, I see your problem." A beautiful young woman was waiting for the bus in a crowded city, dressed in a tight leather miniskirt, matching leather boots, and a jacket. As the bus arrived and it was her turn to board, she realized that her skirt was so tight she couldn't lift her leg high enough to step onto the bus. A little embarrassed, she flashed the bus driver a quick smile and decided to unzip her skirt just a bit to give herself some extra room. She tried again, but still couldn't make the step. With a sheepish grin, she unzipped it a little more and tried again, but still no luck. At this point, she flashed another smile at the driver, unzipped the skirt a little more, and attempted the step once again, but still couldn't manage it. As she was starting to get frustrated, a big Texan behind her gently picked her up by the waist and placed her on the step of the bus. Outraged, she spun around and yelled at him, "How dare you touch me? I don't even know you." The Texan, not missing a beat, smiled and said, "Well, ma'am, normally I'd agree with you, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I figured we were friends." A lost dog wanders into a jungle, and a lion spots him from a distance. The lion, eyeing the unfamiliar creature, thinks to himself, "That guy looks tasty, never seen anything like him before." With that, the lion charges at the dog with a menacing roar. The dog, panicked, begins to flee, but then notices some bones nearby. A light bulb goes off in his head, and he yells out, That was some delicious lion meat." The lion immediately halts, shocked. "Whoa, this dog's tougher than I thought. I better get out of here while I can." Up in the treetops, a monkey witnesses the whole scene and quickly realizes he could cash in on this situation. He scampers over to the lion and tells him the truth. The lion, now enraged, growls, hop on my back, we're going to get him together." The lion and monkey charge back toward the dog. Seeing them coming, the dog starts to panic even more, but then has another brilliant idea. He looks up and shouts, "Where the heck is that monkey? I told him to bring me another lion an hour ago." At a crowded public beach, a man decides to take a swim. As he wades into the water, feeling the cool waves, he suddenly freezes. A hand grabs him by the balls. A deep, eerie voice whispers, "+2 or -2? Startled and confused, the man blurts out, +2. Instantly, the grip releases, and he rushes back to shore. Trembling, he checks his pants. He now has 4 balls. Shocked but determined to fix this, he bravely re-enters the water. As expected, the same mysterious hand grabs hold of him again. The voice asks, "+4 or -4? Mr. Johnson boarded a plane to New York City and made his way to his aisle seat. As he was about to sit down, he noticed a blonde woman already in his seat. What are you doing?" sputtered Mr. Johnson. "I specifically booked this seat. Why aren't you sitting in yours?" The blonde woman calmly replied, "I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until this plane lands in New York City." Fuming, Mr. Johnson grabbed her ticket from her hand. It clearly showed a middle seat. "Your ticket says you're supposed to be sitting in the middle," he exclaimed. "I booked this aisle seat because I'm 6'5", and I can't stand the cramped spaces. You don't look any taller than 5'1". Surely the middle seat will work fine for you." He flashed his own ticket to emphasize his point. The blonde woman shrugged and said again, "I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until this plane lands in New York City." At this point, the woman sitting in the window seat piped up, "You'd better listen to him. I once dated a guy who was 6'1", 4 inches shorter than that guy, and he always sat in the aisle because he hated being cramped." Undeterred, the blonde repeated, "I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until this plane lands in New York City." Mr. Johnson, now absolutely furious, called a flight attendant over and explained the situation. The flight attendant whispered something to the blonde, who then sheepishly moved to the middle seat. Mr. Johnson, feeling victorious, finally took his place in the aisle seat. After the plane landed, Mr. Johnson approached the flight attendant and asked, "What did you tell her?" The flight attendant smiled and replied, "I told her the aisle seat wasn't going to New York City." A woman is strolling through the park when she notices an incredibly attractive man sitting on a bench, reading a book and eating fruit from a Tupperware container. After a moment of hesitation, she gathers the courage to approach him. She walks over, takes a seat next to him, and turns to him nervously. "Sorry to interrupt, but I know this might sound forward, but I'd love to grab coffee with you sometime." The man smiles, clearly flattered, and responds, "Sure, but what makes you so sure we'd get along?" "Well," the woman starts, "a couple of things, actually. I noticed you're wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt. Iron Maiden is my favorite band ever. When they went on their reunion tour in 1999, my parents took me to see them in Cleveland. I was 12, and it was the first concert I ever went to. I absolutely loved them." The man's eyes widen. "No way. I saw them in Cleveland in '99 too? First concert I ever went to on my own. My best friend Jimmy Spitz and I told our parents we were sleeping over at each other's houses, snuck out, took a bus into the city, and saw them at the Plain Dealer Pavilion." Both of them are shocked. They've got so much in common. "That's crazy," says the woman, "but it gets even better. I saw you're reading Mark Twain. I majored in communications, and I wrote my thesis on Mark Twain and how he used satire to comment on the events of his time, comparing him to modern-day satirical news sources. He's my absolute favorite author." Now the man is truly stunned. "Wait a minute, I was an English major. I specialize in 19th century American literature. This is like my fourth or fifth time reading Tom Sawyer. I absolutely love Mark Twain." They both can't believe how many things they have in common. "This is crazy." "Okay, last thing," the woman says, her eyes lighting up. "I noticed you're eating a prune. Prunes are my absolute favorite fruit. When I was a kid, my grandfather lived on a farm with an orchard. He mostly grew apples and lemons, but he planted a couple of plum trees just for me and my sister because we loved prunes so much. Every summer, we'd go up to visit him, harvest the plums, and he'd dry them. By Thanksgiving, he'd always have a batch saved just for us. They're my favorite fruit, and now you're eating one. This has to be fate. What do you say?" The man puts down his fruit, looks at her, and smiles. "It's a date." A blonde was caught in a blizzard. The snow was falling heavily, and the winds were so strong that visibility was almost zero when she finished work. She made her way to her car and wondered how she'd ever make it home. Sitting in her car, she let it warm up and thought about her situation. Then, she remembered her dad's advice. If she ever got stuck in a blizzard, she should wait for a snowplow to pass and follow it to avoid getting stuck in a snowdrift. This made her feel much better, and sure enough, after a short while, a snowplow appeared. She started following it, feeling smug as she easily navigated through the blizzard, while others were stuck in the snow. After a long time, the snowplow came to a stop, and the driver got out, walking toward her car. He signaled for her to roll down her window. "Are you okay?" he asked. "You've been following me for quite a while." She smiled and said, "Oh, I'm fine. My dad always told me to follow a snowplow if I got stuck in a blizzard, so that's what I'm doing." The driver nodded and said, "Well, that's fine, but I'm done plowing the Walmart parking lot. I'm heading over to the Kmart next." Three engineers and three accountants are traveling by train to a conference. At the station, the three accountants each buy a ticket, while the three engineers purchase only one ticket between them. Curious, one of the accountants asks, "How are you three going to travel with just one ticket?" "Just watch," replies one of the engineers with a grin. Once on board, the three accountants take their seats while the engineers squeeze into a restroom and close the door behind them. A while later, the conductor comes around collecting tickets. He knocks on the restroom door and says, "Ticket, please." The door opens just a crack and a single arm emerges with the ticket. The conductor takes it and moves on. The accountants, impressed by the engineer's ingenuity, decide to copy the idea on the return trip to save some money. They buy a single ticket between the three of them. To their surprise, the engineers don't buy any tickets at all. One of the accountants asks, "How are you going to travel without any tickets?" "Watch and you'll see," replies one of the engineers. They board the train, and the engineers cram into one restroom, while the accountants do the same in another. After a while, one of the engineers leaves his restroom, walks over to the accountant's restroom, and knocks on the door. "Ticket, please."